Hello, my beautiful viewers on E360. I hope that you are amazing. And I hear that there in the Northern Hemisphere, it's hot, 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 hot. And guess what? Look, here in the Southern Hemisphere, we are cold. Well, I am cold here in South Africa, and beautiful Russell is also also in the Southern Hemisphere, and he's in Australia. I will ask him when he comes up how cold is it, but yeah, it's very cold. It's very cold. But I have amazing guests today that will warm your hearts, and not only your hearts. They will tell you something that makes vulnerability a good thing. So you will see my total today. Oh, my total. I was busy totaling stuff up today. I'm trying to do something on Instagram so that I can do an amazing post for Innovate Us in our beautiful Diamond Moments magazine. But it tells me I've got too little followers on Instagram. So now I must try and get more followers so that I can try and do the thing that I need to do so that I can show my beautiful ladies and gentlemen in the Diamond Beauties and the Tanzanite Heroes how to do something special on Instagram. But I'm still halfway between there and there. So my title for this show is Your Heart's Mirror. What is your heart's mirror? So my beautiful, beautiful guest, actual fact, we've got an expert in breathing. So I'm not going to do the breathing at the moment. I'm going to play my video of my amazing sponsor, Jose Escobar. And then my guests will be all in studio. And before I ask everyone to introduce themselves, I will ask beautiful Russell to take us through 3 deep breaths. And then we will start with the show. So I will not do it before the time. So my beautiful viewers and my beautiful Tanzanite and Diamond Beauties Forever, are you ready? I am, and I cannot wait to let you meet my beautiful guest. Here we go.
Is Jose Escobar. I live in Washington, D.C. area. I'm a family man. I'm an entrepreneur, coach, author, and speaker. I have communities. I support people. I'm a servant leader, and the list goes on. And I'm primarily the CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. That's my bread and butter. That's my core offer, right? That's where I put most of my time and energy. And the Connected Leaders Academy is a growing community. It's a tribe of some of the highest level entrepreneurs from all over the world. We're now over 350 plus members, 42 states across the US, and 17 international countries. If you're an entrepreneur out there that's looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more money, more clients, right? This is the community for you.
I don't know why, but there's a lack in the video, but that is how it is. So my beautiful Russell, before we start with our show, can you take us through 3 deep breaths? And then I will start asking, then we will start with you to ask you to introduce yourself. But can you take us through deep, beautiful breaths?
Jan, lovely to meet you all, guys. So yeah, we can, I was thinking the most important thing when taking deep breaths is we want to use the diaphragm to breathe. Okay, so the belly button moves out when we breathe in. So you can breathe with me 3 times. We just breathe in and out. And in with the belly button going out. And out. And last one, big belly breath in. I'm going to go with an ah.
Wow, thank you, my beautiful Russell. Please tell us what time is it and introduce yourself. Tell us what time it is, and tell us where you're from. I know it's Australian. I think it's Perth, but I was not too sure.
It is, Sanet. It's 3:06 a.m. on the morning of the 8th of July. So yeah, it's pretty early here, but worth getting up for. And my name's Russell Story. I'm a breath worker based in Perth in Western Australia. And yeah, I teach people how to change their lives by changing how they breathe.
Wow. I love that. I loved it. And my beautiful Russell, you have the opportunity to stand on the beach and have clients there, and then take them through the breathing exercise and workshops. And I have signed myself up as a bucket list that I want to come and do one of your breath workshops on that beach in Perth. I cannot wait. Thank you so much. So let me start with Scott. Scott, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from. And then will you introduce your beautiful wife, Lisa? And then we will go to Lisa.
Hey everybody, Scott Burley from Forward Walking Choices Coaching. I'm currently in Ashcroft, Canada. It's in British Columbia. I am a crisis prevention and life coach. And you know, the bottom line is I just want to spread joy in this world and help people change and help people grow from a spot that I was once in. And it's what kind of encouraged me to lead a life like this. And because there's a lot of struggles going on in this world right now, and the more positive influences we can have in our lives, the better off the whole world is. And it's just one word at a time or one person at a time. And that's all we need to do. So anyways, here's my beautiful wife, Lisa Burley.
Thanks. Yes, my name is Lisa Burley, and I too am in Ashcroft, BC, in Canada. And I am a two-time Amazon bestseller author, along with Scott as well. So we've both written books, and we met 3 years ago, and we are on an amazing adventure called life. And taking every opportunity, including today, to grow and to share with other people. And yeah, I am super excited to be here and to share about vulnerability.
Thank you. And my beautiful Lisa, you are also one of our Mrs. Spots in the Diamond Beauties Forever. There's 7 hosts that is having a tea party. We call it a tea party, but we never had tea. You can come and talk and just be seen and be heard. And then amazing. I love that. Thank you, my beautiful Lisa. And then one of my co-hosts on Soul Diamond Author's Journey. Please introduce yourself, my beautiful Laura.
Yeah, Sanet, thank you again. I'm sure we all really are aligned with the sentiment of everything you're doing in the world. Every opportunity for us to come on and share our passion and really what's in our heart. And for me, it is really about personal evolution to have positive causation and collective elevation, right? We can do the work, but when we do it together, it is so much more fun and exciting. So I'm a top-selling author. I'm a thought energy expert. I'm very much into the quantum fields of potential and possibility. The science of empowerment is all about mind development for our global community. I can go on, but Sanet knows I don't like to, so on to the next.
And you're so modest, but you have so many incredible accolades, my beautiful Laura. Thank you. Thank you for being you and being amazing. My beautiful Heidi, I could not wait for you to come to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Sanet. It's an honor to be here, and I'm honored to be with all of you today. Thank you for being able to share the stage with all of you. It's a great honor. My name's Heidi Dunstan. I am currently based in Canada. When it's summer, I'm in Canada. When it's winter, I'm in Mexico, which is where I met Sanet. But I travel a lot. Actually, tomorrow I'm heading to the US, and then shortly after I'm in the UK. So I have two roles. I am a certified grief educator and a widow. I lost my husband unexpectedly in 2018, and that's kind of the space I'm in today, is to teach people what to say and not say to somebody who's grieving so we don't lose the legacies of those we've lost. And then in my real day job, I run and plan online and in-person events and kind of keep track going for speakers and authors and running stages in prestigious universities and different spaces around Canada, the US, and the UK.
Incredible. Thank you so much. So, my beautiful Russell, we are back with you. Can you tell us, today's title is Your Heart's Mirror, and it's all about vulnerability. What does vulnerability, what does vulnerability means for you?
I think in a word, courage. It's at the heart of what I do, actually. You know, for people to come and work with me, they've got to open themselves up to something new, and they've got to open themselves up to, potentially being emotionally vulnerable. Because when we go inside and we check in with our breathing, and when we work with our breath, we start to encounter some of the more sensitive parts of our experience, and quite often emotional parts of our experience. And so it takes a tremendous amount of courage to take that first step into the unknown, and particularly working with guys, you know, learning to embrace our sensitivity, and sometimes to deepen our emotional strength and our emotional control. It means we've got to go there first, and that requires an element of risk. And for me, that's really what vulnerability is, right? It's opening up to not being in control of the possible outcome, and exposing ourselves to being seen, being really seen.
Wow. So, ladies, I don't know if you agree with me, and maybe you as well, Scott, but beautiful Russell's got a beautiful voice. When we had our coffee chat, I told him, you can talk the whole time, I will just listen. Can you remember, Russell?
I do, yeah.
Oh, wow. So, Russell, when I come to you again after the round, I would love to find out, you can think about it, but if you can tell us, how do you deal with men that they want to, but they don't know how to open themselves up? So you can think about that. I'm going to go to Scott. My beautiful Scott, what does vulnerability means for you?
I would have to say strength and courage, like Russell said. It's the connection between your head and your heart. And a lot of people I know have had a hard time making that journey. However, we wouldn't let ourselves be vulnerable. And it wasn't until I allowed myself to be vulnerable that I could make the connection from my head to my heart. And it's the same as almost everything else in my life. It's a snowball effect. The more you're vulnerable and the more you open up, the more the world opens up to you. So it's one of the best journeys that anybody can ever make, is the journey from your head to your heart.
Oh, I love that. So when we also come past the next time around, I would love to ask you, in situations that you were, that you didn't go in that vulnerability route, but now looking back in hindsight, you can actually give this advice to somebody else, especially a man, in a man's point of view. Thank you. We've got a Harbour Journal that says hello. We've got Ideal Guy 2 says hello. Paul Brandt here. So hi, the viewers out there. So my beautiful Lisa, can you tell me, what does vulnerability means for you?
I can relate it to my own story, I suppose. But vulnerability for me means trust. And so about 5 years ago, I had to trust not only myself, but others who were trust in myself to look somewhere for support so I could move forward. And so when I started on this journey of self-growth, I learned to trust myself more, and to trust myself that even though the future is uncertain and I don't have everything written in stone, what's going to happen. I trust myself that I will be creative in finding, ways to solve problems, or how I can maneuver through challenging situations, and trust myself that, I can feel emotions, and emotions will shift, and then I can choose something new to feel. So trusting myself was the big one. And vulnerability, I know one of the points about vulnerability, when I was at a personal development class, the one where I met Scott, that was one of the biggest attractions of why he kind of shone in the group of 70 some people, was because he was very vulnerable. And he had an open heart. And so I knew he had that sense of trust in himself, that being vulnerable was important, and found that quite attractive. So trust between him and I, for example, is priority. So, and we are very vulnerable with each other. So trust in me and trust in the people that are close to me. That's important.
Wow, I got goosebumps. And I just wanted to tell you all, Marilyn is here. A Harvard Journal is Marilyn. So Marilyn is from, I want to say Oregon, but not Oregon, Portland. She's from Portland. Hello, Marilyn from Portland. My beautiful Laura. What does vulnerability means for you?
Yeah, I love listening to all these really heartfelt shares from the panel. And I think there's so many similarities that we can all align with, right, in this human condition while we're going through this human experience. My brain and my heart coherence always take me out and past kind of what's at face value. So for me, vulnerability is about awareness to my own reactions and how I am really moving through each experience. That teaches me how to be more vulnerable, but from an empowered position, because now I want to learn how to respond differently rather than react. But in order for me to be vulnerable, I have to be very aware of who I am and the space that I'm holding, and also what I'm creating for the other person, or certainly the other people. So I think there's a real empowerment to vulnerability. I know so many people, certainly, the mass population looks at vulnerability as a weakness. I don't. I think it's actually quite a beautiful superpower. And when we become aware of how we can recalibrate the old way of thinking about vulnerability, we can really, I think, change lives.
You just gave me goosebumps all the way. I had to put on the glasses. And here in South Africa, if somebody have given you a profound statement, you will go with a woman will go with a deep voice, and she will say, wow, that was deep. That was deep. Because you touch some of our hearts, the heart's points, and you gave me goosebumps. So, Laura, you were deep.
Thank you.
I love that. I love that. My beautiful Heidi, what does vulnerability means for you?
I really love what everybody had to say. Like, I think that, the courage to be vulnerable, it takes a lot of courage. For me, I had to put down the badge of strength. I kind of was hiding behind it. And it also meant that I wasn't allowing people to see me be vulnerable because I was being strong. So I've put down the strength badge, but I can say that the other piece of it, like trust, feeling safe, those are all pieces that are really important in vulnerability. And then the other couple pieces that are important to me are grace, because vulnerability can come with so many different emotions, and we've got to be graceful with ourselves and graceful with others to move through vulnerability. And the other piece of vulnerability that I believe is really important is hope. Hope that we're going to come out better and stronger on the other side. And when you're a widow, vulnerability isn't an option. You get kicked there really fast. And the other side of supporting people who are grieving, it takes a vulnerable person to be able to lean in and support somebody and love somebody where they're at and hold space in a beautiful way while they move through difficult emotions. So vulnerability is paramount in the world that I work in.
Wow. Incredible. And when you said hope, because that was one of the things that I was actually writing a poem on hope is life, because without hope there's no life. I actually met somebody on my one of my trips to America, and I gave him hope just by talking to him. And he said to me, well, he could not pronounce my name. He said Cindy or something like that. He could not pronounce the way that normally I pronounce it. And he tried, and he said, you just gave me hope, and I will continue to live. And it was like profound for me. So thank you so much. My beautiful Russell, what magic. What was your superpower? May I ask that I ask you, what's your superpower?
My superpower is staying present while people go into deep emotion during breath sessions.
So I wanted to ask you, how are you helping, especially men that want to change, but how can you help them?
I guess in a couple of ways. Being a breath worker, part of our job is to go there first, and so you're giving people assurance that if they have the courage to breathe, it's going to be okay. Because you're proof to them that you can get through to the other side, and particularly working with men. It's funny, what was coming up for me was like men are smart, right? We're not closed off on purpose. We're closed off because in many ways it's a pretty successful and useful way of being, and strength is something that is quite often admired, and I guess, speaking as a breath worker, it's a perfect way to start exploring things gently, because we can be vulnerable without having to expose ourselves too much. And I often, tell people, that's the best thing about breath work, is we can feel better without having to talk. And so sometimes learning to feel our feelings first in the privacy of just when we're breathing, not having to share anything about our experience, can be that first little step into our emotional body and into our into the fullness of our own being. And so it's actually giving guys the confidence to take that first step, and we don't want to be taking unnecessary risks when we're being vulnerable, because by definition, if we're open up and we're vulnerable, we can get hurt. So learning to take things a step at a time, but also having I guess some feedback and some evidence that's really useful for guys, that they know that the process that they're working on is actually doing something. And so being able to open up gently, which you mirror through breathing, is a really, really powerful skill. There's loads of male breath workers out there, because I think a lot of guys are starting to realize that rather than just talking about things, that they can actually do something, but the doing requires feeling, and that's where the vulnerability kicks in. But yeah, if you can go there first for people, you can demonstrate to them that it's going to be okay. It's amazing what you can see, and I've seen some guys really experience some incredible things in their lives.
I love that. And there's Paul Brand said, loved this conversation. Being vulnerable is a dangerous zone. And then when I saw dangerous zone, I remember that song, you are in the danger zone of that. What was it? I remember the movie, The Flight with... Yes. And I always play that song when my husband's phone, you're on a danger zone. Yet, so very powerful. Russell, you nailed it. Believing in positive results and leading with hope, as Heidi said. Oh, thank you so much, Paul. So my beautiful Scott, I'm over to you. You are welcome to share your answer for me.
So I got asked about, Sanet asked me a question of how I was vulnerable. And one of the times, I was at this course. It was a 3-day weekend course, and it was about signing up for their next course. And at the time, I was probably at one of the lowest points in my life, and I went to this place for help. And I was mad that they were trying to get me to upsell me to the next course. And so eventually, somehow, I seen the light and the logic of going to the next course. And the next course is where I met Lisa. And by the time it happened, there was with COVID happening, it got put off, and I didn't really want to go, and I begrudgingly went. And I think I was really angry actually the first day of the course, but I showed up, and I showed up in a way that I've never showed up before. And this one exercise they got us to do was we were supposed to go home. We were on silent night for the night, and we were supposed to go back and write our hopes, dreams, and goals. And so I did. I wrote this little paragraph about this big and was really not into it because I didn't have any hope, like somebody had talked about tonight. And I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and before my eyes were open, this moment was like, you ripped that piece of paper up and you put some stuff with some meaning and substance in it. And one of my things was I wanted a partner in my life. I wanted somebody to share my life with. And so the first exercise of the day was this high rope exercise. And there's this gentleman, Felipe, standing there, and he asked me what my first main goal was or hope was. And I said that I wanted a partner. And he goes to me, well, what are you going to say to your partner when you wake up in the morning? I'll roll over and go, hey, babe, I love you. Felipe goes to me, why don't you one-up this? And I'm like thinking, how can you one-up I love you, babe? And he goes, why don't you ask her, how can I love you today? And there's no way to get more vulnerable than that, because we're learning. We humans just think we know how to be friends and we know how to love each other. We know how to be a parent. We know how to do this. Well, if we don't ask and take direction, how do we know? And what a better person than to ask my beautiful wife, Lisa, how I can love her every day. And we don't do it every day now, but we do it a lot. And then later on, about 6 or 8 months after we started doing this with each other, we kind of flipped it up a notch. And at night, we ask each other if we fulfilled our commitment to each other. Because that's what marriage is. Marriage is about commitment and love and cherish. And, and that's being vulnerable. And if you like Laura said, most of society thinks vulnerable is a weakness. And I thought vulnerable was a weakness for years. Like I spent 40 some odd years around 12-step programs and wouldn't allow myself to get vulnerable so I could heal. And once I got vulnerable and started healing the trauma, life's
Okay.
Just for a minute.
I'm sure. And Lisa, look like Lisa is also frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I'm sure they will be coming back. It's all the way there from Canada. So we will connect with them again just in a few seconds. My beautiful Laura, if I can ask you to share some insights and how you empower with your incredible book, but not just that, everything that you do to help people change their mindset.
Yeah, thank you. I know we're all going to say this, but every one of us has such a unique way of being in this world. And I just learned something. And this is what I love, right? I think if any one of us thinks that we are masters of any one thing or many things, we've really given up the opportunity to learn. And I love this. How can I love you today? And it just made me think about asking that now to my very wonderful family, but we all go through challenges, and I just love that. So I learned something really cool. So I just think it's amazing. Heidi, I'm so sorry for your loss. My husband and I just lost one of our best friends, 45, and he left his beautiful wife and 5 children. And we are learning how to navigate this holding space from different states. And when we do connect, so I just want to really give you a heartfelt acknowledgement for the work you're doing. I think it's a very unique kind of person to person experience, but there really is, I think, some foundational principles that are need to be in place, which you are sharing. So thank you. And just I wanted to acknowledge that. I really, as you know me, I look at everything from the lens of how can we empower. And that doesn't mean to negate, ignore, or abandon what is happening. I'm always thinking, how can we recalibrate, right, that coherence, the mind, the body? And I do this through thought process. How are we thinking about something? Because how we think really does have direct causation on how we feel. And I love too when Russell was talking about letting these, creating the space so these gentlemen understand that it's okay to get in touch with the physicality, the body, coming into that emotional body. So there's so many beautiful golden nuggets here being shared. But I really think that emotional freedom from a thought process around a very challenging experience really creates healing. And there's different ways to go through it. But I really do think that when we start to bring in an awareness, and then we become willing to think a little bit differently, or to take on a new skill or a tool, or some unique coaching formula or process, and really take accountability for how long do I want to stay connected to this particular experience. When can I maybe apply a bit of critical thinking to lessen some of the emotionality and the weight that's causing us? And then really moving into, and I'm running through the formula here, moving into energy, negative, positive, neutral, and which one am I? And when I work with my clients and I speak all over, and I give people this opportunity to understand that you are in the power seat of choice at every moment of every turn. And that doesn't mean that we don't need guidance and help and structure and boundaries and advice and inspiration. But really, it comes down to us authorizing, how do I want to experience the next moment? Or as Russell said, maybe the present moment, in order to create the next moment to just be a little bit more than what we're experiencing now. I think that allows us to heal. It allows us to empower vulnerability and certainly strengthen the areas that are creating struggle. But again, with Heidi in consideration of her work, that's a process. And I think it's a very individualized process. And Russell with breath work, right? Some people, I am a head coach for a global organization where we do courageous leadership work, and we have a breath process in there. And you can see people that come in, and it's a very foreign experience to even just breathe, put the hand on the heart or the belly, or, to move through that mind-body connection. And so for me with thought energy, because I look at everything as energy, because it's in everything, especially wrapped deeply within our experiences, I think there are really such beautiful ways to empower each individual. You just have to hold the psychological space and create a safe environment and a very compassionate environment. And then you can begin to support. And I think through certain empowering techniques, you can really begin to heal the process.
Wow, I love it. Thank you, my beautiful Laura. I am going to bring in Lisa and Scott, and then we can wiggle, and then they will be able to come in.
Hello.
There you are. So, Scott, we will catch up with you in a few seconds. I'm going to go to Heidi. So, my beautiful Heidi, that was one of the things that I wanted to ask. Do you have advice for people that can be sensitive enough to help a person going through grief? Laura was talking about that. Will you be able to share some of that for us?
For sure. One of the things that I loved what Scott said earlier was talking about asking his wife every day, how can I love you today? And I think we can do that with every person in our life. Instead of asking, how are you, where we anticipate the answer is supposed to be good, fine, or okay, ask, how's today? And instead of saying, where are you, call me if you need me, for somebody who's grieving or going through a hard time, saying, what can I do to support you today? and showing up in ways that can support somebody in that moment. And Laura, you mentioned that you're moving through supporting a family or a close friend through grief, and that you're not in the same state. And people think that distance can make that impossible, and it doesn't need to. You know, the world of Uber Eats and, you know, DoorDash and Skip the Dishes, we can send food quite just no different than sending the 17 lasagnas you get when you're at home. But we can also send books, audio books, ebooks, hardcover books, like as a gift. And then we can also just show up on Zoom and say, hey, let's have tea time. Let's have a visit. And sometimes I can tell as a griever that they want to actually talk about their person, or they want to talk about their emotions. And sometimes they're like, I just want normal. And you just have to show up and love them exactly where they're at, without judgment. Judgment is grief's kryptonite, and it stops connection. And the one piece about vulnerability is when we're vulnerable with people and we love them exactly where they're at, without judgment, the connection runs deep. And I can tell you that the people that I have been vulnerable with and that have allowed me to be vulnerable with them, my connection to them is deep. I will hold deep regard and deep love for them for seeing me in the places where I've been extremely vulnerable. And that is the gift of vulnerability.
That's beautiful.
That's so beautiful. My beautiful Heidi, what was your superpower?
Oh goodness, I don't even remember, because I remember that we spent a few minutes planning it, so I don't remember actually. Yeah,
It will probably come back to me. I've
I
got a message.
remember it was the song that we loved. We had fun with my song.
What is your forever song?
The Road Less Traveled.
Yes. The first time I've heard it. And we've got a message from Paul. It says, we are also needed support from our partner to allow us to show emotions, to be vulnerable, rather than to ridicule us for our weakness. Just being present is powerful. Wow, I love that. So my beautiful Scott, I will come back to you in 1 minute. My beautiful Lisa, can you tell us an incident? Well, you have told us that 5 years ago that you have changed, but is there any incidents that you saw, not with Scott, but with other family members, that you being vulnerable, that have changed their lives?
Wow. When I began this authoring journey, I knew I was going to be very vulnerable. And my book is an open book of me and my life and my feelings, my thoughts, my opinions, something I never thought was important for most of my life. Never thought those things were important. And now they're permanently in a book. Is kind of crazy. And one of the first stories, one of the first memories I have from growing up was an event where I'd asked my dad to paint the white wooden fence. We had an acre lot, and I was the artsy fartsy one of the family, and I wanted to help paint the fence. And I remember him saying, no, like, you won't do the job that I want done, and how this impacted me. And of course, when I thought, if I'm going to put something like this in my book, I need to talk to my dad first about this. And so I talked to my dad. This was a few years ago now. I said, Dad, I remember this event happening. He goes, I don't remember. I said, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to let you know that it was something that influenced the way I thought about myself. And I'm going to be putting it in my book. He goes, he apologized for the event. And he said, I'm sorry that had that impact on you. And so from that moment, I can see our relationship even better and more blooming, more connection. So that coming forth from me being vulnerable and him being vulnerable, we had some more amazing conversations. Like, I actually had the opportunity to sit down with him last year and ask about his childhood, something I never, ever asked him about. And so stepping up and being brave. And I think one of you, maybe it was you, Russell, talked about our comfort zone. And a lot of people say stepping out of our comfort zone. I call it stretching, because I feel like I'm always stretching it, and doing new things when new opportunities are presented. So, yeah, I find when I stretch my comfort zone, it allows others to do the same, and it gives that space for them. So that's probably my biggest thing. And my superpower, I don't know if that was one thing you were asking me as well. My smile is my superpower when you first see me. That's what I think. But being a great listener and understanding there's a reason why my two ears don't close, they're open, and my mouth closes, because we're meant to listen.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, my beautiful Lisa. Scott, can you remember where you stopped?
A little bit. I think it was about one-upping it with Lisa when I asked her how I can love her that day. We got to the point about 6 or 8 months after we've been doing this every day. And by doing that, you actually learn what people like, and you learn how, because you really, when you're making an answer back, you have to walk, like when she asked me how she could love me, I had to get uncomfortable and vulnerable. And however, like I would say to her, it could be as simple as, can you clean the garage out today? It's a mess. It could be as simple as that. But you need to look within and get used to comfortable with looking in to be able to share how that. So then when we one-upped it, we would ask each other if we fulfilled our commitment to each other every day. And, there's a lot of times we might forget or not ask in the morning, but we'll remember at night, did we fulfill our commitment to each other today? Did we love you? And I think in society today, we've forgotten how to do that, how to fulfill our commitments and have a commitment with a partner rather than just have somebody that, we like how she looks and that's what we went after. And that's how I was for years. And I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't grow up in an experience to be vulnerable. And from doing that, like, I didn't talk to my brother in almost 30 years. He's in my life today. And we're starting to get vulnerable with each other, and it's neat. And I wrote my memoirs, My Perfect Storm, and he sent me an email a few weeks ago, or a text, I should say, and he's like, he read the book, and he just started off with, I need to start with this and say, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And it's opened up, and that's being vulnerable. And without vulnerability, we don't have anything in our world. We just got toughness and hardness. And that's what I thought my superpower was that I was hard. And I'm finding today that that's the furthest thing from the truth. And the truth is I'm a softie, and that's one of my superpowers, and that I can share my life with anybody. And that excites me, because I think of me when I was looking for help and not being able to find it. And if I could have seen somebody that was doing something like I'm doing now, it might have encouraged me to step forward more. And so, yeah.
Wow, I love it. Thank you, my beautiful Scott. My beautiful Russell, I am going to ask everyone if they can give us in a few minutes or so advice or tips for somebody to be okay for being vulnerable.
I think know your audience and take your time. And because it's a balance, right? And real vulnerability involves risk. And if it's not risky, it's not really being vulnerable. And so, but that doesn't mean just charging straight into something and then potentially oversharing to the wrong people, and learning to trust your own instincts and your own sort of safety mechanism itself. So I think taking it slow, and I think the expression I heard was, people have to earn the right to hear our stories. And so if you're working with somebody new, whether that's on a professional basis or even a friendship, it's I guess pursuing authenticity above all, and trusting that will unfold in in the right time. It's not something that we can necessarily rush or want to rush. And yeah, I think it might have been what Scott was saying, about being able to, like, we need to be vulnerable to heal. And I think that's sort of the key is, there's this moment, I think, in everyone's life where we just have to let go and trust what's on the other side of our control. And usually that's incredibly rewarding, but it can also be scary too. So take it slow and pick your audience.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much, my beautiful Laura.
Yeah, I think looking at vulnerability can be very satisfying. I really do. I think the friendships that deepen, just as Scott was saying, being estranged from his brother all of these years, how exciting to be able to become vulnerable with one another and almost relive that childhood energy that got lost somehow, or that young adult, or whenever it was that it broke. It can be exciting. It doesn't always have to be heavy and disturbing, right, to the soul or the heart. It can be something with grace and with divinity, but it can be exciting. Get curious about how can vulnerability empower my life, empower those around me. So I think I choose to look at things with a higher level of positivity. But you do have to know your audience. And of course, like Heidi, you don't go with this mindset energy when you are in these very vulnerable situations. And as Russell said, you cannot rush forward. But I think for those of us that have begun to really activate vulnerability, really allow yourself to have fun with it and really find joy in it, and let it be this beginning pathway to, I think, quite an amazing life. And don't be afraid of it. It's really quite remarkable what will happen when you allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Wow, I love it. And since you are our only American, Heidi, you are a Canadian. I just want to make sure. Yes. I thought, now let me just make sure. I want to say happy 4th of July. The flag is here in front of me because I want to be. I
Thank you.
also want to celebrate the 4th of July in my future. Thank you. My beautiful Heidi, you've got some tips for us?
You know what? For those that are ready to embrace vulnerability, do it with courage. Give yourself the grace that you need to move through the emotions. Earlier, Scott had said that the journey between your head and your heart is a powerful journey, and know that sometimes in vulnerability, I know for me, I often was like, especially in grief, because it's a hot mess of emotions, I was like, hey, why am I going through this emotion again? I thought I dealt with this already. And that was my way of stopping that connection to my heart. It was my head's way of saying, hey, you don't need to do this right now, or don't do this. It's going to be hard. But hard work is hard work, and you deserve to have those opportunities, and do it with grace for yourself. And when you see others being vulnerable, give them the grace that they need to be able to move through it.
Wow, I love it. Paul said, know your audience. Vulnerable is open to attack, and words become weapons in the wrong hands. Wow, I love it. My beautiful Lisa, and you?
Well, I like what Heidi said. Hard work is hard work. And I'm going to go on one of those in reference to Scott. I know when he took that first course, 3-day course, and they were upselling him to the next one. And he tells this story in his book that he would put $5,000 into his motorcycle, but not into him. So it's understanding that you are worth the journey. That's a big thing. And so for my little tip to leave you with is to actually look at yourself in the mirror every morning and say, how can I love you today? That's my big takeaway today.
I love it. I was thinking he's going to tell us about a motorcycle, and you are going to tell us how can I love you, and then he started with I can love you. So not to worry. My beautiful Scott, you've got 1 minute. Can you tell us your tip, please?
First off, like everybody said, I would make sure you know your audience. I spent years around self-help groups that I won't say harmed me, because they, in a sense, they helped me. However, once I broke free from there and started going elsewhere, I found the growth really happened. And just be careful who you're sharing with. And it's like peeling an onion back. But just keep peeling and look in the directions. And if what you're doing doesn't work, change the direction. It doesn't mean go back to the way you were, just change the direction and go forward.
Wow, I love it. And Paul, thank you so much. He said, thank you all for sharing. There's an important topic. So my beautiful viewers on E360 and then all my Diamond Beauties and Tanzanite heroes, thank you so much for viewing today and in the future. And I hope you learned something from my amazing guest today about vulnerability. The title, Your Heart's Mirror, is truly an amazing title. When I was in my meditation and I asked God to give me an amazing title for today's show, when I saw the heart in the mirror, I wrote it down, and then I had to kick my chair to the back and I was dancing. I said, I love it. I love it. So I just wanted to say thank you, my beautiful guests, for being here. Thank you for sharing your hearts, your wisdom, your brilliance, not only with me, but to so many across the world. So my beautiful Laura, Heidi, Russell, Lisa, and Scott, you all called by name. Will you have a dance with me?
Of course.
Yeah.
My beautiful viewers out there, will you have a dance with us? They said yes. They said yes. Here we go.
Yeah.
Walking on sunshine or dancing in the rain. Sprinkle me with fairy dust so I can fly away. Smiling at a moonbeam or squinting in the sun. Sprinkle me with fairy dust and cover me with love.
No butterfly today.